Good afternoon and welcome to Chris 180's Lunchtime Live series. I'm Chandra Luckett, Chief Marketing Officer here at Chris 180, and we're thrilled that you have decided to join us for the April episode of our award-winning series. Today, we're talking about life as we know it. Are we getting back to normal, or will things never really be the same? But there are a lot of concerns and anxiety around returning to normal post-COVID-19. While the pandemic is still very much a part of our daily lives, there are changes coming to how we are doing things every day, from new guidelines from the CDC to more schools opening up and people getting ready to travel for the summer. But should you be concerned, or should you be able to freely live your life as you choose once everything has calmed down? There are a lot of questions surrounding that and anxieties and fears. So today's panelists will discuss these things and give you suggestions and tips for how to move forward safely while protecting your boundaries and your peace. Our experts today are both therapists at the Chris Counseling Center Atlanta offices. We have Hope Covington and Caroline Reyes. Ladies, take it away.
Hi, so I'm Hope. One thing that we want to talk about with this idea of returning to normal and thoughts and fears and anxieties that are coming up is, in some ways, this idea of returning to normal is, in some ways, a little bit of a myth. The pandemic, I think, is going to change our lives forever, probably. It has fundamentally changed the way we've lived our life for the past year. And those changes have impacted us as individuals and as a country and as the world. And so we want to kind of keep that in mind, that normalcy is going to look different for everyone, and it's going to look different kind of depending on what our lives look like and where we're at. Another thing that I just want to name as we are talking about this is the role of privilege and this idea of coming back to normalcy. Being able to work from home is a privilege. There are lots of people who have continued getting up and going to work every day and exposing themselves to risk in healthcare, grocery stores, factory workers, people who have been essential workers. And so we just want to kind of name that as we're talking about this today.
Yes, absolutely. The idea of normal and what is normal is different for every person outside of this pandemic. But I think during this pandemic, it has really heightened that differences of normal, because this idea of returning to normal, some people don't have that because their lives have changed so much, whether that be from they lost a job, they lost a loved one, they suffered from health reasons, what their life looked like pre-pandemic. It may not look like that after this pandemic. And what is normal for you or for me is not normal for another person. And so really acknowledging and recognizing that everyone's COVID story is different is really important when we're having these conversations.
And as we're thinking about going back, as restrictions start loosening up, we start making changes to where life is returning to some sense of normalcy. There can be anxieties around what were the things that for some people think there have been changes in that have come from quarantining that have been positive. And this idea of going back into more social situations is anxiety inducing. The idea of potentially having more risk, more interaction with other people. And I think one thing an invitation that we have right now is to think about what did you gain from your time from COVID that you want to take with you? We've all experienced COVID, and we have the choice we've all had the choice to think about what things do we want to bring with us. What were some lessons learned that we want to bring with us into this next chapter?
Yeah, and I think that this idea of uncertainty and not knowing what it looks like for what's next, because COVID is still real and cases still exist, and that heightened sense of anxiety definitely happened during the pandemic. Fear of getting COVID or spreading COVID and wanting to keep each other safe as a community. And now here we are, where we kind of acclimated to that. We have sheltered in place, we have quarantined, we've gotten used to our routines, our habits, whether that be working from home or doing virtual school. and change is hard. And so, COVID doesn't have an expiration date. We weren't given an expiration date. So it still is out there. And so, slowly learning and listening to guidelines and what people are comfortable with is really important. And so a couple of examples, some of our youth that we work with that have really gotten comfortable doing virtual school and have a real fear of returning back to school for different reasons. Some, not wanting to get COVID, the fear of getting COVID. And another one being, some youth experience some interpersonal problems when they were in person school. And so parents' fear of, will those continue if we go back in person after being in virtual? So there's different sides of anxiety that are coming up. And I think we have a question.
Yes, Grace on Facebook asks, even being fully vaccinated, there is still anxiety to return to big group events that others seem totally fine with. How can I explain or defend this anxiety to those in my life who are ready to go back to fully living out those experiences?
And I think that is a really important question, and something that we were talking about together. So having boundaries about how you choose to engage is really important. And you need to make the choices that are right for you and that you feel safe with. Choosing to communicate that in like an assertive way with your loved ones and with family and friends is a really important thing.
Yes. Boundaries are one, respecting each other's boundaries. We may have different boundaries and what those look like. And really knowing what your boundaries are is kind of step one. What are you comfortable with? And kind of figuring out how you get to that is, are there some questions you still have about events or things going on that you feel like you want answers for? And that's okay. And something that I like to share with clients or friends or family members is that boundaries are an invitation, not a limitation. And what I mean by that is that, when I'm sharing with you my boundaries, I'm inviting you to know this about me, to know what I need in order to feel comfortable, to feel safe. And, I want you to support me in that. It's not limiting my choices. It's not limiting my interactions. It's just what I need in order to attend or to not attend, and that's okay.
Yeah, and this is where you can use some effective communication. Like Caroline said, asking clear questions about what is this event going to be like, who's going to be there, what are people's levels of vaccination who are at this event, what are things are you going to be doing to keep people safe. Those are all valid questions to be asking, and owning. You can use I language, making statements like, this is what I need, to feel safe. This is what's important to me. And that is good communication.
Yes.
Things that what we've been talking about with anxiety. So, with COVID, I think people have had underlying existing mental health challenges. COVID may have exacerbated those, made them worsen things that people were already experiencing. And then also there are people who are experiencing new mental health challenges, people who are experiencing anxiety for the first time or experiencing depression for the first time. With some of my clients who struggle with social anxiety, for some of them being at home has been this blessing. They've been able to relax. Some of them have in the safe environment of being at home, they've actually built up they've had chances to practice social skills in small safe settings, and it has really helped. And some of them now feel more ready to engage in society. Others of my clients feel like they've lost the ability to practice social engagement, in crowds. And so the idea of like going back into work or things like that, can induce a lot of anxiety. So.
Yes, and I think that adds to the fact of we've gotten used to this time of it's been over a year now that we've been in this pandemic, and we've learned how to cope at home or within these settings that we've had to because of the restrictions, and not knowing how we cope outside of that, or how could we cope outside of that, is this whole new conversation. And we have a question.
So how do you think this pandemic will change the way we view health and healthcare in the future?
That is a good question. I think that goes back to our conversation of privilege of, people that had access to healthcare and quality healthcare, who had access to testing, really were able to, remain quarantined, and were able to get that access really quick. And so it really has heightened and made us look at this whole healthcare system as a whole, and the idea of people that have had to continue working and put their life on the line every day and getting exposed, and some of those people that didn't have access to healthcare. And so what does that mean for our essential workers if we call you essential? I know that we work with our clients a lot about healthcare is important. We talk about whole health, and I know we both believe that healthcare is a human right and that we want that for everybody, and how do we work towards that as a collective community?
Yeah. And like this pandemic has really highlighted disparities in access to healthcare, because we've seen higher rates of infection and death among communities of color. We know that like in lower income communities, there's less access to things like prevention or like having a primary care doctor. Being able to like there's less access to some of those things that build up your health resiliency. There's been lower vaccination rates among communities of color again, or in like low income communities. And so, I think the COVID has really highlighted the disparity. And I think we are at this place where we have a choice as a country and as a world about what we're going to learn from this and what we're going to do. Sounds like we have another question.
Yeah, so this one says, for many of us, the pandemic has taken a significant toll on our mental health. How could this be affecting our choices about re-engaging in the world?
Yes. Again, this season, it's affected everyone. We've all been through this collective event that has been really hard and challenging, and learning how to acclimate and change, kind of not by choice, is really hard. And so I do see this as something that, we will remember for a lifetime. And, when we're talking about what's next, it's kind of you've been in this mindset for so long of really trying to take care of others and take care of yourself. And how do we do that safely? And are these choices I'm making still okay? And, all of these questions are okay to have. And I know Hope and I would both say that, we believe everyone would benefit from therapy in some form or fashion, and just being able to feel supported in making some difficult choices or things that you've been through, and talking through that and feeling comfortable is okay.
Yeah, COVID is this collective trauma that we have all been through and are still going through. It's like the water that we are swimming in, and you can't expect to walk through that water or swim through that water without getting wet. And there's no way that you have gone through this past year and it hasn't affected your mental health. Like every single person has experienced that. And so, give yourself grace as you take steps to choose or not to choose to re-engage with people or things that you used to do. Give yourself grace, do things in small doses, reach out for help from like friends or family and loved ones that you trust, and seek professional help when you want to or need to. Like Caroline said, therapy is helpful for everyone. As humans, we are not wired to do things alone. We're wired to do things like we're wired to need support and do things in community. And that's part of why this isolation of COVID has been so harmful for so many of us. So reach out for support. And we have another question.
What would you all say about people who may have fears about returning back to work, but it's mandatory at their organization? How can they have those kinds of conversations with their supervisors?
Yes, I think that goes into that boundary conversation of, you know, knowing what you need in order to feel comfortable. There are still precautions in place, and trying to acknowledge what your comfortability is without judgment. So acknowledging what you need, acknowledging what you need to feel comfortable, and being okay having those conversations. You know, your supervisors or people in your workplace have also lived through this pandemic, and so they know, you know, what this pandemic is like. And so it is okay to ask those certain clarifying questions in order for you to feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to share ideas that you have about ways to be safe. And yeah, I again just want to acknowledge that, like, it isn't always a choice about whether you're going back to work or not.
So the world that lies ahead may look different than the one we had before the pandemic, even with more people being vaccinated every day. What are some reasons that we can be hopeful for the months to come?
You know, hope, I always like to think that hope, you know, keeps us going. We want to, you know, we want to think about a better future or something to look forward to. And I think that's what people are really leaning into, is they're really hoping for something different, for something better. And so this idea of months to come, and I do think we need to be safe about it. There are certain things still in place. COVID still exists, and there are, you know, still cases. And yes, vaccinations have increased. Yes, people are getting vaccinated. But again, that doesn't mean that this pandemic is over.
Yeah, and I think gratitude is really important. Like, as you, if you're looking for things to give you hope, we don't really know we don't really know what the future is going to look like. But take time to be grateful for what you have in the moment. Just take time to think about, like, even it may be very small things. Like, I'm glad I woke up this morning, and I'm glad the sun was shining, and I'm glad I have a healthy body still. But research shows that taking time to be grateful has really positive mental health benefits.
And I think that goes back to your point of, like, taking time to reflect too on this pandemic and what we have learned as individuals, what you learned about yourself, what we've learned as a community, and how we can continue that into our future. And I believe we have another question.
Yes. So this one comes from Norma, and she says, after a year of anxiety, I feel like I don't have the same emotional reserves as I did a year ago. Any tips on how to rebuild resiliency as we move forward?
I just first want to just really validate that experience and that feeling of, like, I feel like I've used up my reserves that I had. And I just really want to say that you are, like, not alone in that experience. And as reality, like, we are kind of, if we think about this in terms of, like, a trauma that we're living through, like, we're all in survival mode right now. We have had this, like, constant stress for, like, a year or more. And that takes a toll. And so I'm not going to pretend that you can just, like, I'm not going to give you, like, a list of 5, like, self-care items that are going to, like, fix your life. But I do think that, like, that making small changes to increase your resiliency really matters. There's not, like, a quick fix, and you're still living in a pandemic. But you can take small things. You can do small things to rebuild resiliency. Find people to talk to. Lean on your support system. Find the things that either give you joy now or used to give you joy, and make time to do those. Take care of your body, take care of your physical health. go to therapy. It's a great choice. Yeah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, it does make sense that we've really had a hard year, and that, like you said, that it's really taken a toll on us. It makes sense. And there's this idea of behavior activation. And, sometimes we have to, make ourselves do things in order to feel better in the future, even though we don't want to do something. It's kind of the idea of like, I know if I do this, I'll feel better, but I don't want to. It's that getting to that activity is the hardest part. And, really just focusing on what you can control is also something that can be focused on as well. Another question.
So with the news coming out from the CDC about not having to wear masks for all outdoor events, depending on size, what would you say to the person who is struggling with that and wants to know how to navigate conversations with friends about still wearing masks in some places?
Yeah, I think again, that goes back to our boundaries. If you want to wear a mask, that is okay. If that makes you feel more comfortable, that's okay. And, not judging your thoughts and your needs is okay to do what you need in order to feel safe. And there's this idea of sometimes taking smaller steps in order to feel more comfortable in the future. And if that means going to a smaller event outside with a mask on, and then maybe the next time exploring not doing that or not, it depends. And I think just taking small steps, but being okay with, yes, there are these guidelines, and yes, some may just stick to those guidelines alone, but if you want to put extra precautions in place, that's okay.
Yeah, and being non-judgmental toward yourself and toward others. Being non-judgmental about your own anxiety and fears and whatever is coming up for you. And maybe you are immunocompromised, or maybe you are in a more vulnerable group. And so for you to feel safe, you need to have some extra measures. And then also being non-judgmental about the choices that other people are making that are like within CDC guidelines. So give grace to yourself and to others. We have another question.
So we just talked about mental health, but how do you know when your fear or anxiety around the pandemic is reaching a level when you need to seek professional help?
Yeah. So my bottom line is that therapy helps everyone, and if you want to talk to someone, talk to someone. And if you feel like you would benefit from the extra support of a professional, talk to them. And then also, if your fears or anxiety are impacting your life, if it's making it hard for you to work, if it's affecting your relationships, if it's making it hard for you to concentrate on things that you need to do, seek help. If your friends or family are expressing concern about like your mental health, or if they're noticing changes, if you've noticed big changes, and if it's making it hard for you to do your regular life, seek help, because you don't need to like suffer alone. And there's help available.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I know, as therapists, we would definitely agree that everyone could benefit from therapy. And, I think about functionality and where that comes into play with our health and how therapy can really benefit, and just feeling supported and finding ways to encourage and come up with ways that you're more comfortable on living and continuing on. And so that's important too.
So as the pandemic comes closer to an end, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, what are you two most looking forward to?
Think about that. Overall, I do look forward to, our people that are getting COVID, not people not getting sick and dying from COVID, and being able to feel like there's not this overarching fear of getting sick and something happening, is definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the ability to have like more physical connection with people. With the pandemic, we suddenly transitioned to doing telehealth in a matter of just like a few weeks. And we have done it, and it has worked great and is effective for people. And I am really looking forward to seeing people in person again, and being able to have the energy of people in the same space.
So we have a question that just came in on Instagram, and it says, how do you know when professional help is not using information to help you, but to study you? Black and brown people are often triggered due to professional help that sometimes doesn't always ask the right questions. So what's some advice maybe you could give this person who is seeking to maybe use therapy, but in a way that will help them?
Yes, and I've been reading a lot about this because I have clients of color, and I want to make sure that they are comfortable in the room with me. And I really want my clients to ask questions. I want them to feel like they're getting their answers, and they feel comfortable in the room. So I like to ask, what do you want to know about me, or what would you like to know about me in order for you to feel more comfortable working with me? And that can be a different array of questions, but I think, specifically with working with clients that don't look like me, there is a concern that I don't understand, that I can't help them. And I just want to, as a therapist, I want to make sure my clients are comfortable and that they're getting the help they need. And whether that be me or someone else, that's okay. But I think getting to that bottom line of, can I help you, and are you getting help, is crucial to the therapeutic relationship.
Yeah. And I think for me as a therapist who is white, like when I'm working with clients where we are coming from different backgrounds, like my goal is like cultural humility. And like my goal is like to try to like, to learn and understand and have curiosity. And I think that, and so as the client, like it is really important for you to be in a space where you feel like respected and heard and understood. And like, that is your right. And not every, like we will be honest, like not every therapist or organization out there is maybe going to hold that space. And so like, it is your right to ask questions. It is your right to be treated with respect. It's your right to look for the qualities in a therapist that you need in order for like your mental health needs to be met.
Yeah, and if you feel like you're not getting those things, your rights, then it is absolutely okay to seek help elsewhere, to seek out a different therapist.
Thank you both for that really thorough answer. So my final question to you all is, as we look forward, we look ahead to the months to come, what are lasting suggestions you want to leave for people as they navigate whatever normal we're in, whether it's the new normal, the old normal, no normal? What would you like people to remember about this time period and their own mental health, whether they're ready to go back to the world as we know it or not?
Overall, I mean, we recommend people talk to your doctors about getting vaccinated, follow all guidelines, and really try to lean into and know your boundaries around this next season, whether it be things opening back up or what we don't know is next for us. Just leaning into that and feeling okay communicating what you need in order to feel safe.
Yeah, give yourself grace and space for all the feelings and all the things that are coming up for you, and have an attitude of like non-judgment and curiosity toward like yourself and toward other people in the world, as we are all navigating this and figuring it out together.
Well, thank you both for such an enlightening conversation. I think what we can all take away is that boundaries are important. And whether you want people to come talk to you without a mask or not, you have to express that and figure out a way to do that for your lives. And that grace is important to all of us, and we have to give it and be able to receive it as well. So if you have any questions or concerns about navigating life in this world that we're living in today, as both Caroline and Hope have mentioned, we have a team of therapists across Metro Atlanta who can meet with you safely in person or virtually at home to provide high quality trauma-informed services to your entire family. So from kids to adults to maybe even the elders in your life. Chris 180 is here to support you. We've been doing it for 40 years and we will continue to do that for years to come. All you have to do is go to our website, chris180.org, and you can find out ways to make an appointment with one of our therapists. Thank you so much for joining us today for this important conversation. Make sure you hit share on your Facebook profile or on Instagram from our IGTV to share the conversation with someone who may need some encouragement as we navigate the world. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month.